And so it was so good for the early church to hear this, because the early church, as I told you, most of them were poor. And if you're poor, you can go through life wishing you were rich, or you can enjoy life that God gave you and serve Him. And did you know it's easier to serve God the less stuff you have? I used to be a butler for a neurosurgeon. In the 70s, while I was in seminary, I was a butler for a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon flew all over the country doing head injuries for sports, football players and everything. He was paid, back then, $3,500 a half hour for his surgery. He was so good. $3,500 a half hour to do his job. Boy, they had everything. I was his butler. They had 7 fireplaces. They had 10 bathrooms. He had a stable of cars. In fact, that's when I met Bonnie. I was his butler. Every time I took Bonnie out the first week, I drove a different car. How do you like that? I took his matching Mercedes 550s one night, one of them. I took his big tired ladder thing, one of those monster trucks, another night. I took the Stretch another night. I took the little sports car another night. And then finally they told me that they were having all their cars detailed. I had to take my own. So the next night I took Bonnie out in my car, a 1970 Caprice. They had holes in the floor because of the salt, and I had a mat over the floor, and when it rained, water splashed in. That was my car. And it was rusted, so when you opened the door, it went, real loud. And I went, and I said, honey, or no, I didn't call her honey then. I said, Bonnie, I'm so sorry you have to come in this car. She said, is this different than the other nights? She hadn't noticed. Boy, I knew she was the one to marry then. I mean, she was not living for what the early church realized they didn't have. She wasn't living for possessions. I knew I had a contented wife. But Bonnie and the doctor both knew the truth, that Jesus is all I need. The doctor had all that stuff just because he was rich, but he was a great benefactor of the Lord. But the early church needed this chapter because they needed to know that life was more than the abundance of things. And so those that lived in the wealthiest, most opulent part of the Roman Empire had to be asked, are you focusing your life on what will never burn up? That's actually the message of Revelation 18. You can choose every day to live for what lasts forever. Revelation 18 tells you what won't last forever. All the stuff, when you read it, when you do your devotion on it, it names everything. It names fine products, spices, gold, silver, everything. All the oils and wines and everything, all the luxuries of the world are going to burn up. Don't live for them. So this is what Jesus says. Chapter 18. After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven. Remember, there are orders of angels. This was a biggie. And the earth was illuminated with his glory. Remember, there are angels, and then there are those burning seraphim, and then there are we go on through, the cherubim, and then there's Lucifer. We've got, before he fell, the archangels. This is one of those big ones. He's like an archangel, or if there's anything above archangels. The earth is illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. Babylon? Are we talking about that little ruin in Iraq? No, Babylon, like you heard from, I don't remember which class, remember the allegorical and the symbolic and all that, and a symbol points at something else. This is symbolic, and signs point to another meaning. Babylon is representative of what started at the Tower of Babel. 2 things, religion and materialism. And materialism is that we want to make as much as we can, collect and hoard as much as we can. Before Babylon, it seems like most people were pretty content. They had farms and everything else, and they kind of lived, and they had crops, and they passed it on to their kids. And all of a sudden, they started having cities. And when you have a city, you have a bunch of people in a little place, and you have some biggies and all the rest. And that's what materialism does. It has some people grasp all the stuff. And so all the nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Everybody's gotten infected with this. The more I have, the more I want, and I want more, and I'm not happy till I have more. And it leads to this desire for abundance. Now, do you remember what Paul says to Christians? Put to death your members which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness. What's covetousness? I want a MacBook Air. I want a MacBook Pro. I don't want an old, Acer, or I don't even know what cheap computers are these days, but I want better. I want to upgrade. I want the newest. I want better. I want, it used to be 20 years ago, I want Air Jordans. You could have normal sports shoes, but you had to have the spring, and that can become covetousness, which is idolatry, especially when wanting that object makes you neglect the Lord to earn it. Oh, by the way, you can follow us on Facebook. It's just me, my name, and that's me on YouTube, because I would love to hear what happens to some of you. I really would. In fact, Bonnie and I collect from all the Bible institutes we go to. We collect students that we have taught that are out there now. I mean, we're actually going in a few months to visit a lot of our students that have planted churches, some of them in Japan and some of them, all over. We're going to see groups in Europe. I would love to hear how your life turns out for the Lord. And if there's some vehicle you could communicate with us, we would love to know.